I was in debt, he was in danger of being deported. Our solution? A fake marriage, but then we fell in love, and the agents showed up. When you're broke in Brooklyn, every morning feels like a negotiation with life. That day I was sitting in my tiny art studio apartment, surrounded by unfinished canvases, the smell of cheap coffee, and rent notices that looked more like threats than letters. Then the door burst open, and Mia, my best friend, my chaos twin, came running in, out of breath. Lena, you need to help me. It's about my brother, her brother, Arjun, the quiet, always put together foreign student who had moved from India a few years ago. I hadn't seen him in months. What happened? I asked. She looked pale. His student visa got denied. They're deporting him next month. I blinked. What? But he's done nothing wrong. I know, she said, pacing. He's trying to appeal, but it'll take too long. He'll have to go back. I sighed. That's awful, Mia. But what can I do? She stopped pacing and looked at me with that look. The look that meant she was about to suggest something insane. You could marry him. I laughed. Out loud. Mia, that's not funny. I'm serious, she said. It's the only way he can stay. Just until he sorts things out. You'll be helping him, and we'll handle everything. Marry him? For a visa? That's illegal. Technically, she said, wincing, but people do it all the time. I stared at her, speechless. My coffee went cold. My rent notice sat in the corner like it was eavesdropping. When Arjun showed up later that evening, everything got even weirder. He looked different, sharper jawline, softer eyes, but still with that quiet, careful energy that made people trust him. Lena, he said, I don't want to put you in trouble. I'll figure something out. Something in his voice made me hesitate. It wasn't pity or guilt. It was desperation, the kind that lives behind polite smiles. I looked at my empty fridge, my unpaid bills, my paint-stained fingers. Maybe we were both drowning, just in different oceans. What if we actually did it? I asked softly. Mia's eyes widened. Wait, seriously? Arjun looked stunned. You'd do that for me? I nodded slowly. Just until you get your papers fixed. You help with rent, I'll help with the story. We keep it simple. No feelings. No problems. He smiled for the first time that day, and somehow it felt real. That's how it began. Not with love, not with fireworks, but with two people too scared to fall apart. And somewhere deep down, I knew. Pretending to be married might be easier than pretending not to care. If you were in Lena's place, broke and desperate, would you agree to a fake marriage to help someone stay in the country? 3 days later, I found myself sitting across from Arjun at the city clerk's office, holding a pen that suddenly felt heavier than a paintbrush. The fluorescent lights above buzzed softly like they were whispering, don't do it. Arjun looked calm, too calm. Are you sure about this? He asked. I nodded, pretending confidence I didn't feel. You just owe me dinner for life. Maybe two. He smiled. Deal. When the clerk handed us the marriage license form, it felt unreal, like we were signing up for a role in someone else's movie. Name, address, date of birth, spouse's name, spouse. The word jumped off the page, unfamiliar, yet strangely personal. I glanced at Arjun. His handwriting was neat, careful. He wrote like he lived, precisely. When it was my turn, my hands trembled. Not because I was scared of getting caught, but because it suddenly hit me. This fake story was about to become real on paper. After we signed, the clerk stamped the form and said, Congratulations, Mr. and Mrs. Kapoor. Mrs. Kapoor. I wanted to laugh, but instead, something fluttered in my chest. On the subway ride back, neither of us spoke much. The silence between us wasn't awkward. It was loaded, like both of us were afraid of saying something that would make it too real. When we got to my apartment, our apartment now, Arjun looked around. It's small, he said gently, but cozy. I shrugged. Yeah, it's mine. Now ours, I guess. He smiled. I'll take the couch. That night, I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, listening to the city hum outside. The sound of him breathing softly from the couch felt strange, like I wasn't alone for the first time in years. In the morning, he made chai. Actual chai, not tea bags and boiling water. He handed me a cup. Try this. It's better than coffee. I took a sip and burned my tongue. Ow, okay, it's good. Really good. He chuckled, and that sound, warm, quiet, honest, filled the room like sunlight. Mia came over later, bursting with nervous energy. You two look cute together, she said. Don't start, I warned. I'm just saying, immigration agents are going to believe this. I frowned. Wait, agents? Yeah, she said. They might check. Photos, visits, questions. You two need to act like a couple for real. I looked at Arjun and he looked back at me. For the first time, it felt like the lie was breathing between us. Pretending was one thing, living it was another. And as I watched him smile politely at Mia while sipping his chai, I couldn't help but wonder, what if the lie became easier to believe than the truth? Do you think love can grow out of a lie, or will it always end up breaking? The first week of being fake married was weird. We started living like strangers who shared the same dream. Or maybe like actors who forgot the script halfway through. Every morning, Arjun woke up before me, made chai, read the news on his phone, and spoke to his parents back home in soft Hindi. I'd lie there pretending to sleep, listening to his voice. Low, calm, steady, the kind that could make bad news sound bearable. Sometimes I'd catch myself smiling, then I'd stop, because smiles meant danger. We made up a couple story, just in case immigration agents came by. Mia coached us like a director. How did you meet? She asked. At her art show, Arjun said. At my friend's birthday, I said at the same time. We froze. Mia sighed. You two are going to fail this in 5 minutes. We practiced for hours. Favorite food, first date, inside jokes. At one point, Arjun looked at me and said, You really hate tomatoes, huh? I blinked. How'd you know? You picked them out of your sandwich. Twice. That made me laugh. Not because it was funny, but because he noticed. Days turned into weeks. My art started selling again. Small pieces, but enough to keep the lights on. Arjun picked up part-time work at a cafe. He left sticky notes on the fridge sometimes. Need milk. Take care. It was supposed to feel fake. It didn't. One evening, we got a letter from the Department of Homeland Security. My stomach dropped. They're scheduling an interview, Arjun said quietly. They'll ask about our marriage. Mia grabbed my arm. This is normal. Just be calm. But calm felt impossible. That night, we sat on the couch practicing again. What's my favorite color? He asked. Green, I said quickly. Wrong. Blue? Right, I muttered. Blue. I'll remember. He smirked. What's mine? Brown? Who picks brown? He laughed. It's gray. We both laughed until the tension cracked open and the silence turned soft. Then, out of nowhere, he asked, do you ever regret it? I looked at him. The marriage or the idea? Both. I thought for a second. No, not yet. There was something in his eyes, quiet, searching, like he wanted to ask more but didn't. Instead, he just nodded and looked away. When I went to bed that night, I lay there wondering how a lie could start to feel like a home. And if the truth ever came knocking, would I even want to open the door? Have you ever pretended to feel something, only to realize later that it had become real? The immigration interview felt like walking into a play where forgetting a single line could end the show. We sat in a cold office, pale walls, one window, a clock that ticked louder than our hearts. The officer, a woman in her 40s with sharp eyes and a voice that didn't bend, began asking questions like she'd seen 100 fake couples before breakfast. How long have you known each other? 2 years, Arjun said. 3, I said. We froze. She raised an eyebrow. 3, I corrected quickly. We were friends before dating. Her pen scratched the paper like judgment itself. Then she asked, what's his favorite food? I answered before thinking. Paneer curry. Arjun smiled slightly. Correct. That smile, small, private, saved me from collapsing inside. She went on. Our first date, the color of our bed sheets. Who sleeps on which side? At one point, I caught Arjun's gaze. He didn't flinch once. He answered everything like he meant it. When the officer finally stood up and said, we'll be in touch, I felt like I'd run a marathon in heels. Outside, I exhaled so hard I almost laughed. We did it, I whispered. Arjun grinned. Almost. We walked out into the Brooklyn sun. For the first time, we held hands. Not for the act, not for the show, but because it felt right. I didn't want to let go. That night, we celebrated with takeout noodles and cheap wine. Mia came over, already suspicious. You two looked too comfortable, she teased. I smirked. Maybe we're just great actors. Or maybe, she said, narrowing her eyes, you're forgetting it's not real. Her words stuck like thorns. Later, when Arjun helped me clean up, our hands brushed. I pulled back too fast. He noticed. Are you okay? He asked softly. I nodded. Yeah, just tired. But it wasn't tiredness. It was confusion, heat, guilt. Everything tangled in one impossible knot. When I went to bed, I kept replaying the way he'd looked at me during the interview. Steady, trusting, real. It scared me more than the officer's questions ever could. Over the next few days, things changed. He started staying up late with me while I painted. Sometimes he'd bring his laptop, work quietly, glance up and smile. The silence between us began to feel like a language of its own. And somewhere deep down, I realized the line between fake and real wasn't just blurry anymore. It was gone. If you had to pretend to love someone for survival, do you think you could stop yourself from falling for them? Brooklyn summer felt heavier that year. Maybe it was the humidity, or maybe it was everything I was trying not to feel. Arjun started cooking dinner most nights. Spicy curries, homemade rotis, things that made the apartment smell alive. He said it reminded him of home. I said it made me hungry in a way that scared me. We settled into a rhythm that wasn't part of the plan. Morning chai, shared groceries, shared stories. Sometimes he'd bring me flowers from the corner store. For the marriage photos, he'd say, but his eyes always lingered a second too long. One evening, we were on the fire escape, eating ice cream from the tub, watching the city buzz beneath us. You ever think about what happens after? I asked. After the visa, he said. Yeah, when you don't need to stay married anymore. He was quiet for a while. I don't know, he said finally. Maybe I won't want to leave. I looked at him. Leave the country or me? He didn't answer. The silence stretched, soft but sharp. Then he smiled, that gentle half smile that made my stomach twist. Do you ever regret saying yes? He asked. Every day, I said with a smirk. He laughed. Then why are you smiling? Because you make regret look good. He threw his head back and laughed, the sound echoing into the night. It was one of those rare, unguarded moments, the kind that felt real enough to keep. But reality came crashing back the next morning when Mia stopped by unannounced. She looked around, saw his shoes by the door, his jacket on the chair, our wedding photo on the wall. You guys are taking this really seriously, she said. I shrugged. We have to. Immigration's watching. Sure, she said, but her tone carried a crack I didn't like. When Arjun walked in, she stiffened. The air shifted. They barely spoke, but something unspoken passed between them, something that made me uneasy. After she left, Arjun said quietly, she doesn't like this. She doesn't trust it, I corrected. Or me. He hesitated, then said, maybe she's scared of losing you. I looked at him, really looked. And in that second, I realized she might not be the only one. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about his laugh, his voice, the way he looked at me like I wasn't pretending anymore. I wanted to tell him that maybe I wasn't either, but I didn't. Because crossing that line would mean rewriting everything. And we were already living a lie big enough to ruin us both. Would you risk a real heartbreak for a love that was never meant to be real in the first place? It started small. The way he'd look at me when he thought I wasn't watching. The way his hand would brush mine when we reached for the same plate. The way my name sounded different when he said it. I told myself it was still part of the act, but it wasn't. Not anymore. We began to orbit each other in quiet, dangerous ways. He'd wait for me after my art classes. I'd bring him coffee on his breaks. Sometimes we'd walk through Prospect Park in the evenings, pretending to be a real couple for the benefit of strangers, but the pretending started to feel too easy. One night, it rained. Hard. We got stuck under a bus shelter, drenched and laughing. I was shivering. Mascara smudged, hair a mess, and he looked at me like I was art. He pulled off his jacket, draped it over me. Our eyes met too close, too long. Then he whispered, we should probably stop making this feel real. I whispered back, then stop looking at me like that. He didn't, and I didn't want him to. The next morning, I woke up to the sound of his phone. He was in the kitchen speaking in Hindi. His tone was soft, careful, The way you talk to someone who owns a piece of your heart. When he hung up, I asked, "Your mom?" He nodded. "She keeps asking when she can visit." I told her it's not the right time. "She doesn't know this is fake, does she?" He shook his head. "No, she believes in us." The words hit harder than I expected. Later that day, Mia came over again. This time, she didn't even try to hide her irritation. "You two are getting too close," she said. I frowned. "What's that supposed to mean?" "You're supposed to be helping him, not falling for him." I froze. "Who said I am?" She gave a bitter smile. "You didn't have to. I can see it. That was the first time we fought, really fought. She accused me of betraying her trust, of ruining everything. I told her she was jealous and controlling. When she stormed out, I realized that love, even fake love, could burn everything real around it." That night, Arjun found me crying quietly at my desk. He didn't say anything, just sat beside me, close enough for me to feel his warmth. "Don't cry," he said softly. "We'll figure it out." I looked at him through blurred eyes and whispered, "You're the only thing that feels real right now." He didn't answer, but his silence said everything. And that's when I knew pretending was over. Would you risk losing your best friend to be with the one person who makes you feel alive? The letter came on a gray Monday morning, a crisp white envelope with the seal of the United States Department of Homeland Security. My heart stopped before I even opened it. "They're coming for a home visit," Arjun read aloud, his voice calm but his hands shaking. "Tomorrow. Tomorrow." We had one day to make our lie look like the truth. We cleaned the apartment like our lives depended on it. We hung photos, some real, some staged. I painted one of us together, laughing under fairy lights to make the walls look more lived in. He filled drawers with his clothes, moved his toothbrush next to mine. Our lives merged physically, even though they already had emotionally. When the officers arrived, two of them, one man and one woman, everything slowed down. They inspected everything. The fridge magnets, the laundry basket, the way our shoes sat by the door. Then they asked to speak to us separately. The female officer sat across from me, expression unreadable. "How long have you known your husband?" 3 years. "When did you realize you were in love?" My throat went dry. Because when had I realized it? Maybe in the rain that night. Maybe the first time he made me laugh. Maybe too late. I smiled faintly. It wasn't one moment. It just happened. She studied me, pen hovering. "What's his favorite breakfast?" "Parathas," I said instantly. "With too much butter." She nodded slowly. "And yours?" "Coffee," I said. "Always coffee." That made her smile. "You know him well." When they left, Arjun and I sat in silence, both of us trembling but pretending not to. "That was close," he said finally. "Too close." Then he looked at me and said, "You were amazing." "So were you." He smiled. "We make a good team." "Yeah," I whispered. "Too good, maybe." That night, we didn't talk much. We just existed together, side by side, hearts beating in sync, fear and love blending into something we couldn't name. But the peace didn't last. Later, I got a call from Mia. "I need to talk to you," she said coldly. "Now." When I met her at the cafe, she didn't waste a second. "I told you this would get dangerous," she said. "Immigration called me. They asked about you two." "What?" I froze. "They're checking everyone close to him." My stomach turned. "Mia, what did you say?" She hesitated, eyes glistening. "The truth." And just like that, my world tilted. I walked home that night feeling like the city was watching me. Every light, every sound. The lie that had once felt beautiful was now a noose tightening around us both. If someone you loved told the truth, knowing it could destroy you, would you ever forgive them? The day started like any other. Gray clouds over Brooklyn, coffee gone cold on the counter, and Leo sketching on the floor with his glasses slipping down his nose. For a moment, I forgot about the tension that had been creeping around our fake marriage. It almost felt real. The way he looked up at me, smiling as he asked if I wanted to go see the sunset from the rooftop later, it was everything I used to dream of. But then, 3 sharp knocks broke the moment. I froze. Leo looked up. Another knock. Louder this time. My stomach dropped. "It's them," I whispered. He stood slowly, his sketchbook falling to the floor. "Immigration?" I nodded, my pulse racing. We'd prepared for this moment, but now that it was real, I couldn't breathe. Leo took my hand, squeezing it tight. "We've got this," he whispered. "Just remember what we practiced." When I opened the door, 2 officers stood there, both wearing stiff expressions and holding clipboards. The older one flashed his ID. "Mr. and Mrs. Moreno? We're here for a routine home visit regarding your marriage verification." My heart pounded against my ribs. "Of course," I said, forcing a smile. "Come in." They scanned the room, our framed photos, his sketchbooks, my art supplies, the dishes still in the sink. Every little detail we had carefully curated to look like a married couple's life. One of them asked, "How did you two meet?" Leo answered smoothly, "Through her best friend, Claire. She introduced us at her art show." "And how long before you got married?" 8 months, I said quickly. The officer raised an eyebrow. "That's fast." I laughed nervously. "When you know, you know." They asked more questions about our first date, our honeymoon, our families. Leo and I exchanged glances, finishing each other's sentences with the ease of 2 people who had rehearsed this 100 times. But something about the way the younger officer stared at me made my palms sweat. Then he said it. "Your friend Claire reported that she suspects your marriage might not be legitimate." The air left my lungs. Leo's jaw clenched. "That's not true," he said. "She's just upset," I interrupted softly. "She didn't take our relationship well." The officers exchanged a look and closed their folders. "We'll be in touch," the older one said. As soon as the door shut behind them, I collapsed onto the couch. Leo knelt beside me, his hand trembling slightly. "Claire reported us," I whispered. He nodded slowly. "She's going to ruin everything." Tears burned my eyes. "No, we're not going to let her. We just have to prove them wrong." Leo looked at me, eyes dark and steady. "Then it's time we stop pretending, Ava." I blinked. "What do you mean?" He leaned closer, voice low and honest. "Because the only way to make this real is to actually fall in love. If you were in Ava's place, would you keep pretending for safety or risk everything by admitting you've fallen in love for real?" After the officers left, silence filled the apartment. It wasn't peaceful silence. It was the heavy, suffocating kind that makes your heartbeat sound too loud in your own ears. Leo sat beside me, staring at the window. Outside, the city moved on like nothing happened, but inside, everything had changed. His words echoed in my head. The only way to make this real is to actually fall in love. I wanted to laugh, to tell him that's the one thing we couldn't afford to do, but deep down, I already had. That night, we didn't talk about immigration papers, or Claire, or the officers. Instead, we talked about dreams. He told me how he used to watch his father paint in their tiny apartment in Madrid, how art was the only thing that made him feel free. I told him how I used to imagine my life as a mural, full of color, but unfinished. When he reached for my hand, it didn't feel like acting anymore. Days turned into weeks. The tension with Claire grew worse. She avoided me at the art studio, and when she did look my way, her expression was pure betrayal. I wanted to explain, to tell her that I never meant for any of this to happen. But how could I? She'd think I'd chosen her brother over our friendship, and maybe, in a way, I had. Then one evening, I found a letter taped to our door. No return address, just my name written in sharp, angry letters. Inside was a printed photo, one of me and Leo at the cafe near the park. His hand brushed mine, and we were laughing. Underneath, someone had typed, "You should be careful what you fake. Some people are watching." I felt my blood turn to ice. Leo read it twice, his face unreadable. "They're following us," he said finally. "Someone's trying to prove we're lying." "Claire?" I whispered. He didn't answer. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept replaying every interaction, every moment we'd shared that might have looked too staged or too perfect. The walls felt closer. I could almost hear the city breathing against our window, reminding me how fragile our secret was. At 3 in the morning, I sat on the couch and whispered into the dark, "Maybe we should end it. Say it didn't work. Get a divorce before they deport you." Leo appeared from the hallway, his eyes half-shadowed. "And then what? You go back to pretending this never mattered?" I looked up at him. It wasn't supposed to matter. He stepped closer, his voice quiet but certain. "But it does, Ava. It does now." And when he kissed me, really kissed me, I stopped thinking about borders, papers, or lies. For the first time, it didn't feel like pretending. It felt like crossing a line I could never uncross. If you knew falling in love could destroy both your freedom and your friendship, would you still take that risk? The letter was only the beginning. Within a week, immigration officers showed up again, unannounced this time. 2 sharp knocks on the door, followed by, "Mr. Hernandez, Miss Brooks, we need to speak with you." Leo and I exchanged a look that said everything: fear, love, defiance. They questioned us separately. The living room felt like a crime scene. I sat on the couch while an officer flipped through a folder, asking about dates, routines, favorite foods, small details that suddenly felt monumental. "When did you first fall in love?" she asked, her eyes studying every flicker of my expression. I froze. The real answer would have ruined us. But the lie didn't feel right anymore either, so I told the truth. I didn't plan to. It just happened somewhere between pretending and protecting him. Her pen stopped moving. "Do you understand how serious this is?" I nodded. "Yes, but I also understand love doesn't need permission." She looked at me for a long time, then closed her folder. "We'll be in touch." When they left, I felt like I'd run a marathon barefoot. My hands were shaking. Leo came to me quietly, his expression unreadable, until he smiled. "You told the truth, didn't you?" "I couldn't lie anymore," I whispered. "Not about this." We didn't know what would happen next. Deportation, fines, or maybe something worse. But in that small apartment, surrounded by the mess of our fake marriage, everything suddenly felt real. Then the call came 2 weeks later. My heart nearly stopped when I saw the government number flash on my phone. "Ms. Brooks," the voice said. "After reviewing your case and verifying all evidence, we've decided not to pursue further action. You and Mr. Hernandez are cleared." I didn't understand at first. "Cleared?" "Yes, you're free." I sank onto the floor, tears spilling before I even realized I was crying. Leo knelt beside me, his laughter breaking into quiet sobs. For the first time in months, we could breathe. But freedom came with questions. What were we now? 2 people bound by lies, or 2 souls who found something real inside them? Claire finally called a week later. Her voice was cold at first, but softer by the end. "I was angry," she admitted. "Not because you married him, but because I thought you'd betrayed me. I just didn't see how much you loved him." "I didn't see it either," I said quietly. Spring arrived early that year. The city felt new, almost forgiving. Leo started painting again, and I got a new art residency. Our life was small, imperfect, but ours. One night, he looked at me across the kitchen and said, "You know, we never really had a real wedding." I smiled, brushing paint from my fingers. "Good. Maybe this time we can do it for love, not papers." He grinned. "Then let's make it real." And when he kissed me, under the flickering Brooklyn lights, it finally was. Would you risk everything, friendship, freedom, and your future, if the love you found was never supposed to be real?